well, of course there's going to be a sequel. It was hilarious. The guy had a butt on backwards. That was big funny for me at the time. I mean, like they're going to make us. They said they're making a sequel. They said it.
It's our top 3 movies that we are sad never got a sequel. Welcome to another episode of Talk Punch. Thank you so much to both our audio podcast and our YouTube viewers for joining us. I am Brody, joined by Tudong Dylan.
Hey, yeah.
And the William Riker of this Enterprise D, Charlie Hickman.
Oof. I like it. I'll take it.
Nice.
Need a better beard, but I'll take it.
I did that in honor of our special guest, Rob, from Keeping Up with the Cardassians. Welcome to the podcast, Rob.
Thank you for having me, guys. This is very exciting to be here. I'm very excited.
We've been trying to put this together for a while. We finally got it going. So, Rob. Oh, wait, let me finish my script real quick. All right. Well, if you like what you hear, you can get exclusive content on our Patreon, where we can talk about topics we don't normally talk about on the channel. You can find more information about that in the description below. If you haven't already, we'd love it if you subscribed and hit that notification bell so you can come back here every Wednesday to hang out with us, have some fun, just like tonight. So, before we get off the bat, Rob, tell us a little bit about Keeping Up with the Cardassians.
Keeping Up with the Cardassians is a podcast. We're kind of pop culture up front and a show review at the end. And we have done Deep Space Nine, the Battlestar Galactica remake, and we're currently working our way through The Next Generation.
Those are fun episodes, especially because you guys are only a few episodes in, and it doesn't sound like you guys are enjoying these early episodes.
The first season's a little rough. Yeah.
So we've been following each other for a bit, and so we finally said, you know what, Rob's got to come on. We got to hook it up, bring him on the show. So here we are talking about movies that we are sad never got a sequel. How was this list for you guys?
Brutal.
Dylan, Charlie, Dylan.
It was brutal. It was sad to go through a list of movies that I thought there'd be sequels. And so, look, I know we all probably used a little bit of a different methodology. I made sure that mine are movies that I am confident will never get a sequel. Now, was I confident that Gladiator would never get a sequel? Yes. Is it getting a sequel? Yes. So I had to be extra careful in my selections. And I also discovered 5 movies that I did not know were getting sequels, that might be getting sequels. And I will share those at the end. So stay tuned.
Ooh,
nice.
Tudong, how was this for you?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't a happy list, because I had to go in, I had to think about it, and I was like, it'd be great. And I was like, so it was one of those where it was bittersweet, but mainly bitter. But I'm a bitter person, so that makes sense. And sometimes that's what you need to survive.
Rob, how about you? Was this an easy one that I just kind of sent you and was like, hey, do this?
Yeah, I think the first 2 were pretty easy for me. The third one I had to think about a little bit more. The first 2 have been long in my heart that I thought deserved a sequel and had rumored sequels, but then nothing came of it. And the third one I had to think a little bit more about.
Yeah, I had my number 1 and my number 2 like in place.
Yeah.
And then that number 3, I was like, what? I went through a couple different ones, but I went.
Hey, you know what? I did mine, number 3, the old-fashioned way. I listened to Charlie.
All right, so the order tonight is going to be me, and then Dylan, and Rob, and then Charlie. We're just going to go clockwise here. Let's go ahead, do this. So I am up first. So my number 3, this was the hard one. This is the one that I really kind of struggled with. I had a couple, but I finally came down to this one that I was like, there is not going to be. That's Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I mean, this came out in 1986. I pulled some data for all of mine just because I was curious. I was like, okay, so what happened? it had a $2.7 million budget and an 11 million box office. So it did pretty well. And then it just like there was nothing. There was no sequel. There was nothing ever came about it. I mean, Escape from New York got a sequel, but this one didn't. This one even had the tease of the monster, and I was like, how did this not get it? So and I think my thought was like, so after all this, Jack Burton just goes and lives a normal life.
You know, a funny thing is that they were actually thinking that they were going to get a sequel. Carpenter was exceedingly jaded from the studio process when this did not do well. He was not pleased. So he did a lot more independent stuff after this. Because they were like, it's going to be big. It's going to blow up. We got everything in this thing. And yeah, just 11 million. They were very disappointed.
But it only took 2.7 million to make, which is crazy to think about, like the 80s when you could make a movie for $2.7 million.
Yeah. And 11 million is supposed to be a bomb. I mean, that's way more than twice as much.
Yeah, and the marketing had to be cheap for that too back then. So it had to make a little bit of some profit there.
Yeah.
Right?
So there it is. It's so old, we're never going to get a sequel to this. I know they've talked about rebooting it and things like that.
Yeah.
We're not getting a sequel with Kurt Russell, Jack.
We are not. We might get a Dwayne the Rock Johnson version, but we're not getting a sequel.
Like but I don't think that's not right.
The rumors still persist.
Oh,
I don't think you can rule him out for anything.
No.
yeah, right. All right, so that's my number 3. Tudong, what's your
My number 3 comes directly from Charlie, and that is Rapid Fire 2. I thought about maybe The Crow 2, but we did get a Crow 2, and we got too many sequels for The Crow, so I couldn't do that one. But I loved Rapid Fire. I thought it was so cool. Dwight J. Little directed it, starring Brandon Lee, who passed away after he did in the middle, almost at the end of doing The Crow.
Yeah.
You can't have a Rapid Fire Part 2 without Brandon Lee, and definitely, unless of course I hope they don't do any of this AI kind of thing and they like bring that kind of a thing back for this, but sadly, no Rapid Fire 2. Jake Lowe is not going to have a sequel, and they thought about sequels, as they were doing this, and I thought it would have been a really great idea, but fortunately,
franchise.
I almost thought of Showdown Little Tokyo too, but
that would have been a good one.
Yeah.
It's funny because Dylan came on this when he first joined our tonight for the testing. Charlie pretty much said, "Is Rapid Fire on your list, Tudong?"
And I was like, hey,
Oh.
yes, it is now. That's why I did it the old-fashioned way. It came directly from Charlie. Perfect. The other ones I had in mind, I'd been thinking about it for like at least over a week, and I was like, I've got that, but number 3, I'm like, and Charlie's like, Rapid Fire 2. I'm like,
would have been great.
It's been fantastic. If you haven't seen Rapid Fire, folks, check it out. It is a fantastic movie. Rob, you've seen Rapid Fire, right?
I have not seen Rapid Fire, actually. I saw Brandon Lee, and I'm like, wait a second, how have I not seen this movie?
Movie Brandon Lee did right before The Crow, and it is a fun movie. Powers Booth, Nick Mancuso, it's a good one.
I've been loving fun movies lately, so I will be on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck finding it. Streaming anywhere?
Yeah. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. I was just checking. It doesn't look like it's anywhere, but
believe it or not, there's a video store still over here somewhere, so I might go.
Oh,
there
really?
you go.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey. Very cool.
All right, Rob, what's your number 3?
Well, I cheated a little bit because I picked something that actually got a sequel, but not the sequel that I think was intended for it.
Okay.
So go ahead and hit the reel there. I pick The Dark Knight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's no one in this world that can convince me that Heath Ledger's death did not influence this movie either before or after it was released. With how big it was at the time, I would have to imagine that even Christopher Nolan, and I know we all love the guy, would have found some way to incorporate the Joker or something like that into the third one. It's somewhat controversial. I'm not in love with the Dark Knight Rises, as big of a Batman fan as I am. So that's why this movie really sticks out to me, because I would have loved to have seen what would have happened had Heath Ledger not died, and they're able to bring him back in some capacity to help influence the third movie.
That would be cool.
That's a good
great
point.
pick.
That's one of like my great what ifs in movies. It's like, what if Heath Ledger passed? Like, what would Dark Knight Rises?
I have Googled that over time and tried to find an answer, like if Nolan had a plan or anything like that, and there's nothing concrete out there, just rumors and hearsay.
Sure.
But there's nothing you could do to convince me that the third one wouldn't have been involved some way, shape, or form.
No, this is a good pick. I hadn't thought of it.
That's a good one.
All right. Well, a tough act to follow. My number 3 is not quite in the same category of quality film as The Dark Knight, but that's all right. It is not even a movie that I would want a sequel to at this point. But there was a time in my childhood, in my youth, that I would have done just about anything to get the sequel that we were promised. And that is to the Mel Brooks classic Spaceballs. Spaceballs 2, the search for more money. And just this was like I was never more sure in my young childhood that a movie was going to get made than I was the sequel of this. And obviously, this was before you could just look things up on the internet. It just was like, well, of course, there's going to be a sequel. It was hilarious. The guy had a butt on backwards. That was big funny for me at the time. I mean, like they're gonna make us. They said they're making a sequel. They said it.
It's true.
It's true. You can't say things in Hollywood if it's not true. And year after year, it was like, okay, well, I mean, there's no way they're gonna make more Star Wars movies before they make another Spaceballs. I mean, that's not gonna happen. And then prequels come out, and you're like, oh, well, hey, more ammunition for a Spaceballs sequel. They can really make fun of the young Anakin and Jar Jar Binks. They could do some real funny stuff with that. And then, well, there's no way they're going to make another Star Wars trilogy before there's another Spaceballs. So I think at this point, I mean, obviously with no John Candy, it just wouldn't be the same anyway. So I think we can comfortably say that in the year 2024, we are not getting the Spaceballs sequel that we so deserved as young folk many moons ago.
I actually almost picked this or Robin Hood Men in Tights 2.
That's a good one too.
Ooh, that's good.
I didn't even think of this. This is a really good pick.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to number 2. Now, my number 2 is one that just didn't do very well in the box office, and it just never got a sequel, and that's Dread.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That was about to go onto my list too.
This came out in 2012. Okay, it had a $50 million budget. 41 million global box office, which I think is just what killed it. But it has an 80% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 72% audience score. Like, people enjoyed this movie. And so I just wonder, like, what happened? Like, yes, it didn't make the money, but like, I don't know. It like there should have been a sequel.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it was like, because it was like Dread 3D, like when 3D, every movie was coming out in 3D. I don't know if like the 3D kind of hurt the marketing to it. I don't know if it's because it was a rated R movie. Like, I'm not sure, but this movie was awesome and it totally should have had a sequel. And I'm so sad because I love Carl Urban and I'm like, oh, Carl Urban's a great Dread and there's so much they could do, and then just died. Gonna get another.
It's because he didn't say, "I am the law."
Yeah, he did. He did.
Did he say that
like,
in the Dread remake? He said it.
yeah, he did. He was all like, "Mama thinks she's the law, but she's wrong. I am the law." I was just like watching clips of it like maybe last week.
He didn't say anything. He didn't say it like Sly said it.
That's true. That's a good point.
I'll tell you what, Brody. You know what the 3D hurt was my eyes. I tried to watch this on a television at home with like the 3D glasses, and like every 15 minutes I had to like take them off and like all right, I need a break. It's gonna be like a migraine. It was not worth it for the home 3D experience.
It's such a weird movie.
Those slow-mo sequences when it started getting all slow, that was so cool the way they did that. And then they would give that to a person right before they like throw them off of the balcony. I'm like, oh, the whole thing was really cool and just completely gross.
It was just such a weird movie to make. Like of all the movies that are like, you know what, that should be in 3D, like a gritty, hard R Judge Dredd movie. But I'm sad that we'll never get to see.
Yeah,
I think the world needs to appreciate Carl Urban more.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they
definitely.
Fantastic.
So
He
good.
is exceedingly versatile as an actor. Exceedingly.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good.
Tudong.
I'm good in the boys.
Oh yeah. Well,
how about your number two?
Well, mine, technically, we did get this, but we didn't get the version that I think all of us wanted, and that's an actual sequel to Aliens. Neil Blomkamp was going to go back, and he was going to make it with Newt and with Hicks, and they were alive, and we're going to keep going. And I was like, you know what? For some reason, it's kind of a trend where they're going to go back and they're going to kind of redo these things, and I was like, yes, finally, we're going to get a real sequel. And apparently that didn't happen. They because Prometheus was getting made, because Ridley Scott is such a director.
I like Prometheus.
That's great, bro. But do you realize that
probably the only one
rushed this movie, this actual movie that could have been made, a real sequel? Hicks is alive, Newt is alive, a real sequel. Is Prometheus really worth it? Because I say no. I say both Prometheus and the one right after it, definitely not. In fact, you could take majority of all of the Alien movies and get rid of them, and it still wouldn't equal what could have been with this sort of a movie coming back in like with Hicks and Newt. Instead of them being dead, you get Aliens 3, and I didn't hate the movie, but it certainly wasn't a good one, and it couldn't have possibly have been as good as if they had done it right with Hicks and Newt. So yeah, this is definitely not going to happen. They said like Sigourney Weaver was down to do it. Everybody was just about going full steam ahead, and then because, like I said, with Prometheus, everything stopped, and they didn't get a chance to do it, and they didn't do it when they should have done it back when they actually made Aliens.
Right after Aliens. Yeah, that would have been the time.
It would have been the time to do it, but. Yeah, that's not happening. This was in the works for so long, for like years. Neil Blomkamp was going to do it, and it just never panned out. Thank you, Ridley Scott. Thank you. You're going to give us Gladiator 2, but you can't let this happen. Just ridiculous. And yes, I'm not going to watch Gladiator 2, just so everybody knows. And I'm sure I understand that Ridley Scott watches the podcast, and you know what? That's fine. If he's going to be upset, he can be upset.
If he's upset, he can hit up your socials and let you know.
Boom, there it is.
Otherwise, he's cool with it.
He's cool, and he thinks that I'm correct. And he regrets it.
He knows what he did. He knows.
Yep.
He knows what he did.
He knows his mistakes.
I'll watch Gladiator.
Unbelievable, bro.
You can let us know. You can let us know how it is.
I was just about to say the same thing. Let me know how it is.
I actually thought, bro, this was going to be on your list. I thought this was going to cross over onto your list too.
Did you know that?
I don't know that I have ever heard of this.
This has been in the works for a while, like a shocking amount of time, and it was moving forward. Everybody was down. Sigourney Weaver thought she was like, this is a great script. This is how it should have been. And then as soon as Prometheus comes around,
it's a long time after Alien.
Yeah.
Dylan, I know you love to feel angry, so I would recommend you and anyone else out there who wants to just either laugh or feel frustrated, read about the ideas of Gladiator sequels that were floated around for a long time, like Gladiator Christ Killer. Look that up, because they were going to resurrect Maximus to come back and like kill Christ. They were and just keep sending him to different historical moments and resurrecting him to like encounter. And Ridley Scott's like, this is a great idea, and this is going to be fantastic. And So I have no idea what the next Gladiator is about, but if he's not killing Jesus in some way, then I'm going to be a little bit disappointed, because the hype has been built up on the internet for so long with all these. We're going to resurrect him, and he's going to fight all these different historical things. Just bring him back, reanimate him,
and that's why you don't do drugs.
Yeah. Such terrible ideas.
All right, Rob, what's your number 2?
Okay, my number 2 is a movie I adore. Since the movie came out and since I watched it, the director's come out as somewhat problematic, but the movie is still very excellent and had a sequel kind of lined up. But whether we call it Leon or call it The Professional,
Hey,
that movie, I adore this movie. Gary Oldman was lights out in this movie. Well, he wouldn't return. Jean Reno was great. Natalie Portman, at age whatever she was, fantastic. And Louis Besson had written a sequel called Matilda, and they wanted to wait till she got a little bit older before they filmed it. But he lost the rights to The Professional to the prior studio when he went out.
No.
Yeah, so that's actually where the movie Colombiana came around. It was kind of loosely based on his Matilda script.
Oh,
But
really?
Yeah, so in Colombiana, she went back to kill drug lords and cops that had killed her family, i.e. Matilda, and I thought it would have been really cool. And yeah, Louis Besson he's hit and miss, but when he hits, he hits. And I think a Matilda sequel would have been so good if it had that same feel as The Professional, because the ending in that movie, the build-up in that movie, other parts we could leave out, but everything else in that movie was near perfection.
Yeah.
Where just Gary Oldman, everyone, oh my god, I just get giddy. I laugh whenever he does that, just out of joy. If they could do something that in the same feel, that would have been so great to see that.
That was a really, like, Colombiana was like, everybody was like, none of us believe that Zoe Saldana can do any of these things. A lot of the critics were like, yeah, we don't buy it. She's like punching these huge guys and flying all over the place. Preposterous. But, I think Natalie Portman is an actress. She could have sold it.
Well, that was one of the things about The Professional. Jean Reno, he wasn't like a biggest guy in the world. He wasn't.
He sold that like he was fantastic.
He was fantastic. He wasn't Keanu Reeves as John Wick or Batman. He was just presence, and he was just there, and he just knew how to manipulate the situation to come out on top.
No women, no kids.
No women, no kids.
Only women, only children.
That was Dylan and I flirted with writing an Assassin's script about people who were like, why they only wanted to kill women and kids because it was like so much easier.
So much easier. You're not trained assassins,
Like everyone's like, no women or kids, but they're so much easier to kill. Why don't we do? We're gonna only do. Anyway, we didn't write it.
So, you know,
Roy would have a lot to say about that.
So I cannot wait Rob to hear your number 1 that also has Gary Oldman in it.
Because I love that man.
He's great.
Hey, speaking of Gary Oldman and speaking of Luc Besson and speaking of movies that could have had a sequel, let's talk about. Yeah, my second.
No, yes, it is yours.
I go after Rob. It's my turn.
Sorry.
Come on
I'm
now.
not used to having so many people. All right, sorry, I totally ruined your transition.
You did. It was a great transition. You might as well just put my slide up now. It's fine. Doesn't matter anymore.
You really want?
Or don't put it up. I don't care.
Fine, I'll put it up.
I knew you were going to
element, baby.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, I know they wrapped up all the plots, and it was a nice ending for our leads. But man, what an exciting and electric and colorful and delightful universe this was, and a really just fun movie. And if the chemistry was there, if Corbin and Lilu were doing a sequel where the world is in danger again, sign me up. I would have loved to have seen that. It would have been a lot of fun. Obviously, this is not happening now. But it really bummed me out to find out that it was he wanted it to happen. He wrote like 180 pages for like a sequel, and had like just like a bunch of ideas of how he wanted the sequel to go. So this came out like 97, and it was just it's an overused phrase, but I'm gonna use it anyway. It was ahead of its time.
I agree.
And it was underappreciated at the time. I think it made like 220 million, globally on like a 200 million budget. But man, sometimes the movie just fits it's just the wrong time. And this one, I think if it just had come out at a different era, it would have been better appreciated. But it's a fun universe, and I know we can't have Bruce and we can't have nice things. But maybe there could be some revisiting to this universe somewhere down the road. But certainly it wouldn't be a real sequel to this because we couldn't have the right people in it. So
I'm sure The Rock would do it.
He's attached to a lot of things these days. Get him in there. Give me Robert Downey Jr. in like a spiritual successor to The Fifth Element.
Robert Downey Jr. kind of in that Gary Oldman role would probably kill it.
Oh
yeah.
Charlie,
Speaking of TV show.
I wanted to put this on my list, and I struggled with, would I want a sequel because I love the first one so much? And I was like, oh, but like, would it be as good? And so I didn't.
Well, because it will never exist, I can confidently say it would have been better than the first. So, and you cannot prove me wrong.
I love the optimism.
I guess that's
infinitely
true.
better.
You got me.
Infinitely better.
You got me.
Just saying.
Oh, it's true. All right. Well, this is a very good pick because I love this movie.
Yeah, you're always trying to find a way to put this on your list. I feel like this has been on like 30% of every list that we've ever done on this podcast. So I'm happy to sneak this one in on a list that you don't have.
My ears certainly perk up when I hear Fifth Element. You guys mention it regularly. I'm like, I love these guys.
I showed this to my kids recently because I was like, oh, they got to see this. I forgot how many times Lilo goes topless. And I was like, there was a couple times where I was like, cover your eyes.
You're saying Lilo no Stitch?
There was more times than I remembered. And I was like, oh.
I honestly don't remember her being topless. I remember them like implying that she was naked, but I don't remember them showing her topless.
I would imply someone is naked. Like she's off screen and they're like, boy, that girl sure is topless.
No,
yeah, that's exactly what they did.
No, it showed her multiple times. Go watch it, Tudon.
See, I don't remember the ones when the clothing kind of came and got strapped on top of her. That's the only time I remember.
There's that scene, and then there is when she's changing because she got all wet and she's in the priest's apartment.
Ooh.
I thought that like the priest turned around and you see the priest turned around. I don't remember seeing her naked.
No, you see her.
Go back and watch it.
Go back and watch it.
I'll take Brody's word for it because he's watching it with his kids, so I'm sure he's paying very close attention to all
I think
all the nudity as it pops on the screen.
I think you're imagining that it showed up, bro. I don't remember any of that stuff. You're putting way too much into this movie as it should. And by the way, yes, I have shown my 2-year-old this. I showed it to her last year when she was 1. I'm just kidding. I haven't showed it yet.
No pillow scenes. No pillow scenes.
Only violence, no sex.
Moving on to number one. So my number one might be a little controversial. It's a movie that not only killed the chance for any sequels, but killed an entire franchise.
Hey. Interesting.
And that's The Mummy.
Oh. You want a sequel to it?
So, okay. Now, this came out in 2017. Okay. I saw it. I didn't think it was that bad, but it made money. It cost $125 million budget and a $409 million global box office. Now, the Rotten Tomatoes are not great. It has a 35% audience score and a 15% critic score. But like, this was supposed to set up the entire Dark Universe. Like all throughout this movie, we were supposed to get like Johnny Depp as Invisible Man. We were supposed to get Javier Bardem as Frankenstein. We had Russell Crowe as Jekyll and Hyde. Like this was supposed to be.
Angelina Jolie is the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, and so it's like all this stuff was being set up, and just because this movie did not get good reviews, they were like, we're scrapping the entire thing. And I grew up with the Universal monsters, so I love the Universal monsters. I was excited that they were going to kind of modernize some of this stuff. I love Tom Cruise, so I was in this already. And man, it's like I remember when they put out the picture of a lot of the actors for the Dark Universe. And they were like, this is our shared universe, because everybody was doing the shared universe after. They were like, this is our dark universe, shared universe, you know, all this stuff. And I was really excited. And then this came out and just people crapped all over it. And they pretty much said, nope, no more. And it bums me out.
Movie, bro?
Huh? I liked it.
Did you like? Did you like the movie?
It was fun. It was like a Tom Cruise movie with a mummy kind of in the background, but mostly a Tom Cruise movie.
It should have been more Tom Cruise, as far as I'm concerned. A lot more Tom Cruise. In fact,
does he kick a mummy at some point?
Does he run a lot?
He does run. Yeah, he does run. But that's expected. He's the best runner in Hollywood.
All you have to do to defeat a mummy is grab part of the tape and then just start running, Tom Cruise style. And you.
I've seen that in Scooby-Doo a million times. I agree.
Yeah, he worked in the Monster Squad.
So yeah,
I need to see this still. I haven't seen this movie.
Me too. And like Brody, I think Tom Cruise makes great movies, and for some reason I just haven't got into this thing yet.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like great. It wasn't like Mission Impossible, but to kill the entire shared universe, dark universe, was sad.
Well, you've heard it here, folks. There is no movie that has ever existed that deserved a sequel that didn't get one more than Tom Cruise's The Mummy. So,
as far as Brody's concerned, that's not the official view of Talk Punch.
I mean, when you put it that way, I mean, I was just sad about the universe.
Bro. Put it in the thumbnail.
I was sad about it. Oh, that'll be a good thumbnail. I've already made the thumbnail. No, I've already made the thumbnail. It's too late. All right. Well, yeah. So rip Dark Universe. All right.
Rip the Dark Universe. All right.
Dudong, what's your number one?
Interesting, because mine is also supposed to be a horror movie, but it actually is a horror movie.
Did you do The Mummy too?
No, absolutely not. It's a real horror movie with real horror icons, which will sadly never happen. And that is a sequel to Freddy versus Jason. Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
Yes.
Give me some of this. They tried to do it. They tried, because like when Freddy versus Jason came out, it earned more money than all of the other like every single one in both franchises. And so they thought to themselves, let's do a sequel. Let's bring Ash in. And they just could not get everything together. They could barely get it together with Freddy versus Jason. So many different kinds of scripts and ideas and this and that, how they're going to do it. And how they did it, hey, that's not what we're talking about. We're not giving a review on Freddy versus Jason. What we are doing is saying, I wanted to see Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. And they've got comic books about it. And some of them they bring back, like they did like two different continuities, one of which they used like Tommy Jarvis. They used the Dream Master coming back, all of them, Freddy's like daughter who killed him and now she's bad, or all this kind of stuff. They go like they have to fight demons in front of the White House. I mean, everything was going everywhere, and it would have been phenomenal to see Ash going in there and beating the snot out of Freddy and Jason. Just saying that to myself is just fantastic. This is the kind of thing.
He could have said, "Hail to the King, baby!" Like standing over his vanquished foes. Hail to the King, baby.
Old double barrel here.
The one-liners would have been perfect.
Oh, would have been.
This is what I would have wanted to see. I still want to see it, but I mean, Robert Englund's not going to do it. Bruce Campbell's not going to do it. Sam Raimi's definitely not going to do it. Never going to happen, and that is a shame. This is the sequel that I am the most sad we're not going to see, because everybody is still around. It could still be done, and they're just like, we're not going to do it, which is really sad, in my opinion.
Well said. Well said.
Anything with Bruce Campbell and Ash, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's some good taste right there. That's some good Kardashian taste.
No, Cardassian.
Thank you very much.
Did I say Kardashian?
Yeah, you did.
Cardassians. My own host does that to me too, so that's all right.
Yeah.
What a terrible thing to say. I apologize. Kardashian.
Swearing at me, so
Kardashians too. The
All right.
aliens.
All
Alien
right.
species.
Rob, what's your number one?
All right, so my number one has been with me for a long time. It has been with me since the year 1991. It came out, and this movie was absolutely fantastic, but they released it on the wrong day. They released it on the day that Terminator 2 came out, and it got its butt whipped. It is a fun movie. It's a charismatic movie. Movie has a ton of charisma, and it's, to your point earlier, Brody, it probably sequel wouldn't be nearly as good, but I love this movie almost more than life. The Rocketeer.
Oh, this is a good pick. Why did they never make a sequel to this?
So this movie came out and it got its butt kicked by Terminator 2. It came out around, I think, the same weekend or the weekend after or something like that.
Gosh.
And the writers were originally, the writers and the actors were all signed up for 2 movies. They're all supposed to come back. And because it got so blasted and it wasn't really critically received well for some reason.
Really?
Then yeah, I have no idea why. I thought everybody, I love this movie so much. When I go to Disney World, I make sure I go to the theater to see where it blasted off for the premiere. I go to Peavy's to see the rocket pack that's in the background. Every single time I go, and because I love this movie so much. I used to work at a video store and I made sure I played it all the time. Just, the guy that did Captain America did this one, and you could tell it has the same feel.
Yeah. Joe Johnson.
Joe Johnson did a fantastic job with this movie. The actors were great. Jennifer Connelly was lights out. Timothy Dalton was amazing as a pseudo bad guy Bond. Just everything about this movie. Yeah, everything about this movie hit for me. And I know they had a planned sequel to go to New York to follow Jenny out there. But the writers had kind of played red the idea, but no one ever followed up with them. So it kind of went by the wayside, and it is a crying shame.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, if ever there were a reboot begging for The Rock, I mean, this is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, it's right there.
Yeah. So ironically, they actually there's talks about making a sequel for this right now from Disney. And it's more, so it's actually kind of a cool plot. I still want to see the original sequel, but it's going to be a Tuskegee Airman who takes up the mantle of Rocketeer. So it has potential. It could be fun.
That's cool.
I mean, it's not The Rock.
I don't think The Rock could do it because I don't think there's a jetpack that could lift.
Yeah, I want a Rock and Chris Rock. Just kind of have all the rocks in it.
Just all the rocks. Get them all in there.
Rock Dasheteer.
Just they're all the Rocketeers. Yeah. Get some Rockettes in there. Why not? Yeah, I love it.
No, this is really good. This is a good
pick.
This is a great.
Let me tell you something. There is not a worse feeling when we're doing these lists than when the number one thing on your list is somebody's number 3. That is a terrible feeling. Now, when no one else has picked your number 1, it's okay because you can tell yourself a story that they just didn't think of it. No one else thought of how good this movie was. I'm the only one. I'm a genius. And when I say it, everyone's going to go, wow, what a great pick. But when someone has it as their number 3, someone else not only thought of it, but thought, I'm going to toss this in at number 3 and just kind of like barely put it on my list as kind of an afterthought. And it doesn't really matter. It's the most replaceable one on my list. And only an idiot would be excited about this. So thanks a lot, Brody. My number 1 is Big Trouble in Little China.
I'm sorry.
Which is a fantastic film that ends on a cliffhanger and has been begging for a sequel for decades. It's a worthless movie. Nobody wants a sequel. It's not nearly as good as Tom Cruise's The Mummy. The Rock is going to make it someday, and they'll have sequels. Little Big Trouble in Little China babies, all starring The Rock, and it'll be fantastic. But this movie, you heard it here. It's a terrible movie. Brody hates it.
I love it.
Sorry, John Carpenter. So instead of talking about this, I'm going to talk about 5 movies that I didn't know that there might be sequels to. Now, one of them I did. Look, I want to put Edge of Tomorrow on this list because I refuse to believe that there's ever going to be a sequel to it, even though they've been talking about it for a decade. It's been coming. It's been coming for a decade.
Yeah, it has been.
We were talking Robotech before the show started. I've been through this. Names get attached, directors get attached. You start to see pictures coming out of art that it could look like this, and you get excited and you buy in, and you're like, this is it. Now Tom Cruise is filming a SpaceX movie. He's gonna be in literal outer space, avoiding the Edge of Tomorrow sequel. He is trying to die doing a stunt. That is his goal. He is going to be floating in space without a helmet. He wants to be the first actor to ever hold his breath in space. I don't know if this is getting made, but I want it so bad. There was a Shane Black buddy cop film called The Nice Guys, which I've been dying for a sequel since it came out in like 2016. But apparently, talks are in the works. Could happen.
Never heard of it.
I didn't put it on my list.
You've never heard of The Nice Guys?
Oh, it's really fun. It's really fun and widely available on streaming services. It's great. Constantine. Since 2005. All I wanted was a Constantine sequel, and it's looking like it's going to happen with an old Keanu Reeves reviving the role of Constantine, coming on back. So,
hey, the Constantine show was good.
Yeah, I never saw that. Demolition Man. I thought about this one too. That will be good, but as late as like end of year 2023, Stallone's like, it's happening. We're going to be making a Demolition Man sequel. Forget about it. And for some reason, I don't sound like Sylvester Stallone, just an Italian stereotype. And he's like, we're gonna make Demolition Man. So it could happen. So I didn't put on the list because this is like, we're never gonna see it, and we might see it. And then I also put National Treasure 3 because I thought that was a fun series. And now Disney's exploring the IP again. I know they put out that show that wasn't very successful, and so I think they're revisiting the idea. Nicolas Cage said the script is done, so there could be a National Treasure 3 that comes out. So
it's a crying shame that Edge of Tomorrow has not been a sequel has not been made to that movie, and it's a crying shame more people haven't seen that movie to appreciate, because that thing took me by surprise how much I loved that movie.
So good.
Rob, you're a smart guy. Rob is he's a smart man. Unlike me, who put Big Trouble in Little China as number one. What an idiot. What a fool.
It was still on my list.
Yeah, number 3, bro. And you even said at the beginning of your list, well, I had 2 that I really liked, but number 3 was kind of like, well, whatever. I don't know.
See, I had his 1.5 and there's no 1.5 slides, so I couldn't help you out.
All right.
I guess we'll that'll do it for this episode. Rob, thanks so much for joining us. You want to put one more plug out there? Where can people find Keeping Up with the Cardassians?
First of all, thanks again for having me on here, guys. This was fun. I love listening to your show, and just anytime you need anything, you let me know and we'll hook it up. But Keeping Up with the Cardassians, you love pop culture and you love Star Trek, this is the show for you. The first 30 minutes is pop culture, movies, news, music, whatever we're feeling that day. Second half is its show review. You can find us on Instagram, keeping underscore up underscore Cardassians, Twitter, X, whatever it's called, Cardassians Pod. You can find us on YouTube, Patreon, and everything. So find us anywhere. We're out there.
Awesome. We're happy to have you. Love your show. All right, Charlie, go ahead and wrap us up.
Also really good.
We would love to hear what your thoughts are on the sequels. Maybe some of our movies spoke to your heart. Sequels that you wish could be made that were never made. Maybe you have some of your own brilliant ideas. Let us know in the comments. Let us know why Brody should have had Big Trouble in Little China ahead of The Mummy by Tom Cruise. Let us know. Let us know your thoughts, and we look forward to interacting with you. Rob, thanks again. Make sure you check out Keep Up with the Cardassians. It's awesome. They're awesome. He's awesome. And